To understand social reality, you have to be inside it, I said. Bonnie glanced at me with her lips parted and the tip of her tongue touching the upper one. Well, come on, I'll show you around, Stan said. I knew a girl at Bishop, Bonnie said. Mitzi Yamamoto. She's here. We'll go find her. So they go back home to Pasadena. The colored maid served dinner for Bonnie and me and Mrs. Farr and her friend Colonel Bunker, the courtly old gent with a southern accent, and a tweed jacket with other patches on the elbows. Colonel Bunker considered himself an expert at mimicking the president. Ma, Waf, Eleanor, and my little dog, Fala. After dinner, we played mahjong with a beautiful set of antique ivory tiles I'd never played before. My mind kept lurching off. I wasn't much good. The colonel went home at 9:30, and I excused myself, also leaving Bonnie in conversation with her aunt over tiny cups of coffee. In bed, I listened to the rattle of palm fronds in the wind and watched the massive shapes of the dressers and the armor afloat in the darkness. It seemed to me half the night had passed when the door opened on a vertical lighted hallway. I heard the pad of a foot on the parquet and imagined it on the carpet. I tried to keep from panting. Bonnie fell in bed beside me, pinning me beneath the covers, her breath in my ear. She clove to me as I tried to struggle free. Just lie there, she whispered. I managed to half turn over one arm around her. I felt as though I was lying on the keel of a china clipper. I lay still even though my arm felt paralyzed. I could feel the warmth of Bonnie's body through the sheets and quilt. I tried to relax in her embrace. Layers of fabric between us. Electric prickle of her hair against my cheek. How did you know it was wrong for us to fence those people up in that terrible place, she whispered. Because my mother had brought the grapes of wrath home from the lending library when I was at an impressionable age. Because I'd been raised in the Knights of the Round Table and Robin Hood. Because I'd played in the Tutti Frutti backfield at San Diego High with Stan Takahashi. Because I worked at the Brand, that's the commie newspaper he works for. It makes me so mad, she said. Lots of things to get mad about once you start, I said. What you said about social reality, she said. Sure. It's hard when a sweet old man like Colonel Bunker makes fun of good people. It's hard when good people sign orders to put the AJAs into concentration camps, I said. She lay unreachably tight against me in her aunt's guest bedroom. Finally, I determined from her regular breathing she was asleep. There was no way to disentangle myself and go to the bathroom in my desperation. I snapped awake time and again in the rhythm of arousal and subsidence. When I waked to gray dawn, she was gone. Breakfast was grapefruit, muffins, and coffee. Mrs. Farr wore a crisply, rustly dressing gown, Bonnie a white blouse with a loopy blue tie. When we said goodbye, her aunt kissed me on the cheek and told me that Barbara had brought a very nice young man to visit. We drove to Hollywood and wandered along Hollywood Boulevard looking in the shoe store windows. A storefront displayed a recruiting poster in the form of a blown-up newspaper item. Aviation cadet training. 100,000 men to be recruited. Officer training plan. Under smaller heads were the figures. 75 per month during training, 183 a month for ground officers, 245 per month for flying officers. Headlines blazed on the rack of papers in the newsstand. Starvation killing 1,200 Greeks daily. Bonnie stood beside me with her blonde locks curving along her cheeks, shaking her head, blue eyes shot. I just hate the numbers. 36,000 prisoners found on Bataan, I said I like the idea of $245 a month. We'd get married and live on that. I don't want you to be a flyer, Bonnie said. Her old boyfriend had been a flyer and died. Okay then, I mean it. Today she was affectionate in public in a way she never was in San Diego, clinging to my arm and bumping hips as we wandered along the boulevard among sailors and soldiers and their girlfriends. We went to look at the tar pits and had lunch at the farmer's market. The headlights were coming on as we drove along Sunset Boulevard looking for the bar where Art Tatum was playing. It was a dark little place, a steak of beer. On top of the upright piano was a brandy snifter filled with green bills. We ordered Tom Collins's and sat at a tiny table waiting for Tatum to appear. Bonnie leaned against me. Tatum appeared to seat himself at the piano with a scatter of applause. He looked like a fire plug on the bench with his dark glasses and snap-brim hat. He struck a chord full of promise and bent to playing Honeysuckle Rose. As we joined in the clapping when he finished, Bonnie said in a casual voice, "My parents are talking about me transferring to Stanford next year." There was no way in the world I could afford the tuition to transfer to Stanford with her. $225 a quarter. That's the right number. I felt nauseated by the sweet drink in my hand. "Is this because of me?" I whispered. "They can't afford it with Charlie out of school," she said. "I'm sorry I'm unsuitable." "It's because of Charlie," she said tightly. He said, "They're afraid I'll start going steady like I did with Johnny," that was her previous boyfriend, "and you have to marry a doctor." I told you that's just the way Mother is. She and my aunts are like that because they worship grandfather. I watched Tatum's fingers spiking down from fat black hands. Bonnie rested her cheek against my shoulder. I was trying to understand what I felt, like being left up and choosing out a team because you weren't good enough, like not being counted among the people to be invited to a party. I knew that Bonnie loved me, but her parents regarded me as a threat like Johnny had been. To her virginity, or anyway her reputation, to her marrying a proper doctor. So the Stanford prospects of why Mrs. Bonington had permitted this trip. Bonnie hadn't told me earlier so not to spoil our days together. Greeks were dying, and tankers were burning and sinking, and all those Americans were Jap POWs in a war that just went on and on, but this crazy weekend was ending. 4 hours driving back to San Diego, taking it easy to the beach town, down the coast, in the night, Stanford University. The fat black piano player turned corny songs into sparkling music, but it was time to go back to San Diego. Thank you. That's a long one. Any questions?
I'm a jazz freak. That's why I always listen to Ross. And are you a big fan of Art Tatum? Is that why you put him in there? And
He's in there because I did that.
You did see
I went to
him.
hear him like that, yeah. I remember him, or I think I do. Was I wrong?
No,
It's
that's
possible.
great. That's great. Never was a
Thank
better
goodness.
pianist.
I thought I remembered that his hands, he played with his fingers like that.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody else? Challenge me on something.
You mentioned going to Manzanar. Did you go to Manzanar?
No, I didn't. No,
You did not.
I didn't. I was terrifically pissed off about it. But I didn't know anybody there, and I had every reason to go. I didn't go till much after the war, and there it was such a dreary place. I guess now I think as you told me, there's a museum there. But when I went to see, there were just these terrible tar paper shacks climbing up the mountain, and it looked not a place you wanted to be.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
I understand that you used to surf.
Yes.
So in the day, what were some of your favorite surf spots?
Del Mar. We came back. I got out of the war, and we went to Europe for a year and a half. My wife worked for the embassy in Paris, and I worked on my novel Corpus of Joe Bailey over there. And then we came back and bought a house in Del Mar, which was right close to the beach where I could go and body surf.
Awesome. Thank you.
But I lived in Hawaii, and I had a surfboard there, but I like body surfing more. I thought it was more fun than board surfing.
What was your surfboard in Hawaii?
Well, it was a 10-foot board made of redwood, and it weighed so much. I could hardly carry it on my shoulder, and I made a little skate coaster so I could push it along the sidewalk down to the beach, and then paddle out to Queen Surf. I didn't never make it to King Surf, and the wave would hump on the horizon, maybe half a mile away, and you have to start paddling to finally get up enough speed to catch it. Yeah, my surfing career, my board surfing career was not a great satisfaction.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.